around, they think I am at home. Oh no, 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 I'm a rocket man. Rocket man, burning up his fuel up here below. That's Rocket Man by Elton John. Hello, BookTube. I'm doing I've taken up the Rocket Summer Challenge escapade, and so I've had about a week. It's just over a week, and it's to read early science fiction novels. So I'll do them in the order of publication that I've read so far. I've read 4 in about what is it, the 11th of July. It's in about 10-11 days anyway. So it's interesting because I don't read that much science fiction, but sometimes you read a good one. Like I remember Rendezvous with Rama by Arthur C. Clarke, and you know the imagination, the imagery of it, and everything is very striking and memorable. And so I've read a few that have really stayed with me. And one of my favourite writers when I was a lot younger was H.G. Wells. So I took upon myself to read The Invisible Man, which I don't remember reading before. Published in 1897, so that's the first one, date-wise. And I probably have read it when I was a child, but I certainly couldn't remember anything about it. And the premise is obvious, I suppose, that it's a man who's discovered how to make himself invisible. It begins this a winter's day in February or something. This man turns up at an inn, hostelry, a pub, wanting to hire a room. And he's all muffled up, which I suppose would be natural at that time of the year. And so he takes this room. It begins with showing how he orders a meal and he won't let the landlady watch as he eats it, and for obvious reasons. And he's very irascible. He's not a likable character. I think he's called Griffin. Yeah, he's argumentative and has a nasty temper. And but he's the central character. The landlady does her best, and her husband's there, and they try and placate him and everything, but he's very difficult to please. And so it begins. It's a little bit a village with a very odd name. I can't remember what the name of the place is now. But anyway, it starts off like that, and then later on, Wells gives a scientific kind of explanation as to how this might be achieved, and it's plausible. Yeah, it's impossible, but it's plausible. He talks about how some sea creatures, certain kinds of jellyfish and so on, have this transparency that renders them invisible, and then other animals as well that are able to do that. And you know, thinking about things like cuttlefish that can merge themselves into the background, and talks about it, how it might be done. So that's interesting. It's not just a given. Anyway, this man Griffin has worked out through scientific experiments how to do it. But it's not like Jekyll and Hyde. It's not something he can reverse. He's stuck with it now. So if there's any part of his skin that is visible, it gives the game away. So his life becomes more and more difficult, especially as I say, as he is an irascible, misanthropic character. And I think earlier on as well, there's a the vicarage. They have a burglary, and the vicar can hear at the middle of the night. He can hear somebody in the house. Goes down to investigate, carrying the obligatory poker to protect himself against this burglar, and he can just see the drawer in his study being opened, and there's nobody there, of course. So, and they see the door opening and this being shut again, and they've no idea what's going on. So people are puzzled at first, and then slowly it begins to emerge. They begin. He gives himself away. Sometimes he reveals himself to them, and there begins to be a kind of the village sort of rises up against him, and eventually he's forced to flee. He turns up at an old friend's house, somebody he was at university with, who he thinks will help him. And but this man is appalled by Griffin's heartlessness. He doesn't care, and he's now got a sort of vision of himself as kind of ruler, and people should pay homage to him and so on. His megalomania, I suppose, has increased and got worse. So his friend will not go along, but he pretends that he will. So he wants to have him arrested. And of course, it's all very difficult, and it shows the difficulties of people trying to capture this guy. He kills a policeman who tries to arrest him, and he thinks nothing of it. Eventually, the posse of villagers and so on corner him, and he. Well, I won't give it away. Actually, I won't give it away. That'd be yeah, in case you want to read it. It's not a very long novel. Is it a novella or even a short story? As I say, written in 1897, and later on, Wells, of course, moved into doing more social novels like The History of Mr. Polly and Kipps and various others. And these have been completely, I would say, completely neglected now. The History of Mr. Polly is really good. It's a comic novel. I think it's a really excellent book. And I think The Invisible Man is well written, but it's not as good as the writing in The History of Mr. Polly, I don't think, which I have read a few times. But The Invisible Man is excellent, really. It's a very good read, and an unsavoury hero. He's not very likable, Mr. Griffin. So that's The Invisible Man. After that, I read Edgar Rice Burroughs' The Chessmen of Mars. I read this because Michael K. Vaughan mentioned it on his, and I think he's the instigator of this challenge, this idea. So I thought I'd read that, The Chessmen of Mars, on Project Gutenberg, because I don't have a copy of it. I don't have a copy of any of these, actually, of these early science fiction novels. Anyway, it's the fifth of a series, the Barsoom series, 1921, and it's set on Mars. And of course, when you get the fifth of a series, there's a few things, a few challenging things at the beginning of it. Talks about people riding their thought. I thought, what the God's name is a thought? Anyway, you probably, if you start with only one, you'd find out. But I suppose you can just use your imagination. I mean, imagined it was some kind of cross between a horse and a bear that people rode about on. And it's fantastically imaginative. I don't know how much people knew about Mars in 1920 in the 1920s. A bit, I would imagine. Did they still think there were canals on Mars? I can't remember. Now we know, of course, it's pretty barren. Um, but nevertheless, I started to think of it as not as really Mars at all, but a completely different um, universe, almost. You know, like you would think of the Game of Thrones country, or Lord of the Rings, where it's just a completely different environment. It's not of this world, if you like. Obviously, it's not of this world if it's on Mars. But anyway, um, it's quite long actually. It's quite a long novel, and it begins with somebody called Tara of Helium, which is an odd. I mean, Tara's fair enough, but there's this state called Helium, which is a little bit funny, I suppose, as it's a gas. But anyway, Tara of Helium, and it begins with her talking about her betrothal to this man, and then she she's a very rebellious daughter of the king, um, Jean something, can't remember. Anyway, she she's got this thing called a flyer, some kind of flight machine. She takes off and runs into a huge storm and gets driven way out of her way into a place she doesn't know, a country she doesn't know, and encounters some very strange beings. They're all hostile. She's attacked by things called banths, which are like lions that hunt at night. uh, and taken to, and she's eventually caught and imprisoned. And she's a feisty lady. She's the heroine, but she's, they say about science fiction that the characterization is not always that great. You can't tell one person from another, but she does have quite a strong personality. She's the main, she's the heroine of this. And there's a hero as well called Gahan. He goes off looking for her when the storm hits, even though everybody says don't go. This is a ferocious storm, and he sets off in search to help to try and bring her back. He's in love with her already, even though he's hardly ever met her. He's only met her briefly. He sets off, and she escapes from the first place and ends up in another realm, another country. Is it called Manator or something? Where there are these towers with these really weird. I think this is the main central sort of scenario of the novel, where there were these weird things she sees. They're perfect human-like bodies, assuming she has a human-like body, a perfect body but no heads, and they sees these grotesque beings stuffing food into the orifice where the head should be, and then there are these kind of heads crawling about on six legs, and she watches them kind of mount one of the bodies and take it over and then animate it. And of course, she's appalled and disgusted by these weird beings. But again, she's captured. And there's a lot of imagery again of walled cities, towers, endless corridors, and labyrinthine, um, yeah, stone corridors and dungeons and time. There's this room that eventually they find where one of the past rulers of the kingdom, O'May, he's called, was frightened to death 5,000 years ago, and is still there. And they end up in this this room. No one will ever go in it. They're frightened of witches, but they have another name for them. They call them witches, but it's a superstition that terrifies them. But the cat and mouse game goes on quite a long time, and she befriends one of these weird heads called Grek. That's quite touchy, quite amusing in a way. Most of them are hostile, but one of them she befriends because he captures her, but she sings. I don't know if I can't remember how she ends up singing, and it's quite endearing, really, because he hears this. These beings are all apparently intellect. They don't have emotions, feelings, or anything. But she sings, and it somehow pierces through this cold intellect, and he finds it um, absolutely fascinating. He can't get enough of her singing. We don't know if she can really sing, even, but just this idea of singing. And eventually, he begins. This weird Grek begins to realize that the ruler of this place is called Otar, is a tyrant, a demonic tyrant who doesn't deserve um, their worship. So he befriends Tara and he helps her. And there's amusing things about him crawling through funny little holes. Uh, but yeah, I mean, the imagination of it is amazing. It's great. So it's a good read. The narrative drive of it, you know, really keeps you interested. Once you get the hang of the weirdness of some of the things that are mentioned, and the chessman, I mean, it refers to this kind of version of chess which is central to the story. Men stand on squares and they can move certain ways, and if they move into a square occupied by a rival from the other side, the orange and the black, I think it is, then they have a duel, and one must kill the other. And Jetan, it's called, and actually Burroughs gives the rules of the game at the end. So he's worked it all out. I must admit, I can't quite get my head around that, but it's a great idea. I mean, it's brilliantly done. It's a bit like they have this tournament, and a bit like it's reminiscent of the Romans in the Colosseum, the gladiatorial combat, and that kind of thing. We always go back to that, don't we? Science fiction, but it's often goes back to the Roman Empire and that kind of thing. So yeah, that was great. After that, I read. Okay, the next one I've read is Clifford D. Simak, Hellhounds of the Cosmos, published in 1932. And I think this is really just a short story, but it's quite well done. It begins with in a newspaper room, and they hear it. There's reports coming in of this what they call the horror, which is something appearing in various cities around the world and killing the inhabitants. And the newspaperman is asking a reporter, "What is the horror? What it's these strange black beings? What do they look like? Can't describe them. It's hard to say." And somebody called Mr. Henry Wood appears, and they work out that it is beings. Oh, there's a Dr. White, that's right, and he's a scientist. Yeah, it's not Henry Wood, it's Dr. White who propounds the theory that they are beings from a fourth dimension entering. They found a way to enter the third dimension and interfere with it. And he's built a machine, a little bit like a time machine, but it's not going through time, it's going into another dimension. And so he thinks that is the way to deal with this menace, the horror. So he sends men through. He's got this like a device machine, and he sends a load of men through, 98 men, to try to combat this horror or these beings in this fourth dimension. And Mr. Henry Wood joins in, or he trips up and falls into the transporting bit of the machine, and he ends up there. And he's in this strange place, and he looks down and he doesn't recognize his body. It's a big, massive body composed of all these other men that have gone through, and he's now called Malshaf, and he has to fight this other weird thing called Uglat, and so they have this battle, and Malshaf begins to win, and as he does, he comes back, and the doctor notices that the horror, the powers of the horror have lessened, so something is working. So anyway, they go back, they commence this battle, and the Uglat brings reinforcements from the third dimension. He's bringing these beings that have been tormenting various cities in the earth to help him fight, to help his strength. So it all depends on this duel. See, so it's a very strange, intriguing idea, but it's good read, clever, memorable. Yeah, it's great. And then finally, I read Andre Norton, The Time Traders. This is a bit later. This is outside the realm of the early stuff, the 1930s. But I just sort of started reading this. 1958. This is a lot of science fiction reflects what's going on at the time. I suppose it's natural, and this reflects the fear of communism, the fear of the Soviets. So that there's this enemy called the Reds, which is fairly obvious who they are, who have found access to traveling by the speed of light, and on Earth they've found a way to travel through time. They're looking. The hero of it is a kind of a rebel character. He's kind of captured, forced into participating in this program set in the North Pole or somewhere in the Arctic regions, and to travel back and forth through time to find out where the Reds are getting their where the Reds' power lies. And they go back and forth. It becomes it goes back to the time of the Paleolithic, and he goes through a sort of re-education so he can fit in, and so that they won't think of him as an outsider, somebody to be killed and so on. But it's searching for this source of the Reds' power, and it turns out that it is from an alien race that have landed on Earth, crash landed. One of the rockets crash landed, and the hero is inadvertently finds this rocket, and so that's where the Reds are getting their power from. He acquires this kind of suit that is very protective, lets him walk through fire and things like that. But yeah, I suppose the science of it is more advanced than the others, which is only to be expected, having been written quite a bit later. Andre Norton is a woman, actually, a woman writer, which is unusual. Most of these are written by men, aren't they? It's a male thing, science fiction, as a rule. The Time Traders. And yeah, that's the first one I read, actually, so I've forgotten a lot of the details. But it's very innovative, very imaginative. But you'd still know that it is basically an anti-Soviet kind of epic. So there we are. So that's my rocket summer. Shall I continue? I think I might continue with it. See what else I can find, because it's a fairly new. A lot of these, well, all these are fairly new. Maybe The Invisible Man I might have read before. I've read H.G. Wells before, but a lot of these writers I've not really read. Clifford D. Simak and so on. Yeah, I mean, Edgar Rice Burroughs is well known for lots of his other stories as well. But that's an interesting different genre for me to look at. So thanks very much. Bye for now.